Hey, what is up guys? MKBHD here, and this is it. This is the long-awaited Samsung Galaxy Note 8. It was unveiled today, and right off the bat you can see it's a very familiar phone, not just because it was leaked everywhere, but because it's pretty much picking right up where the Note 7 left off last year before all of its battery problems. I'm going to try not to make any explosion jokes during this entire video. We'll see how I do. But yeah, it's true. So for some people, it's boring, but to me and to many others, it's pretty exciting because this is the 2017 version of last year's phone, which was already really good and had a chance of being my favorite phone last year before the recall. So there's a couple main changes to Note 8 that set it in place for this year. New display and design up front, new dual cameras around the back, some updated S Pen features, and new specs. That's the core of what's happening here. So the quickest place to start would definitely be the specs. Snapdragon 835, 6 gigs of RAM, 3300 milliamp hour battery, and Android 7.1 right out the box. So right about what you'd expect, not the biggest battery in the world since they're not pushing it to the absolute limit, but of course fast charging and wireless charging are on board for those who use it. And then you have the slightly updated design with the new display up front. It's a 6.3 inch 18.5 by 9 Quad HD Super AMOLED display, and it just looks incredible. You can see thin bezels, of course, since it's 2017, up top and on the bottom, and it has those slightly curved corners of the display too, like the S8 had. But yeah, it's a huge display, and it's a big phone too, don't get me wrong, but of course the thin bezels make it feel like it fits in the same body size or same footprint. That's not really much bigger at all than last year's phone. It's crazy how reasonable this phone makes a 6.3 inch display look. But other design changes, yes, this phone does now have a Bixby button. Kind of saw that coming from a mile away, but they're doubling down on it, and maybe, Bixby's improving, getting software updates, getting better. And a lot of people are, of course, pretty bummed by the fingerprint placement up on the top of the back of the phone. The fingerprint reader, and I actually wasn't that concerned with it when I was playing with the phone, but then I remembered my hands aren't the same size as everybody's. So if you hand this phone to someone with normal sized hands, it will definitely be a different experience. So I get it. It would be way more reachable somewhere else, like the middle of the back, but then it would also be, I think, way more ugly. And I think Samsung has roped themselves into putting it all the way up with the rest of the back-facing sensors there in that rectangle. Kind of their own fault there. Either way, this phone has, iris scanning and facial recognition and some other ways of securing your phone biometrically if you just can't stand that back-facing fingerprint sensor. The S Pen is also now improved since this is a Note, so anyone who uses this will definitely appreciate it. The tip is thinner. That's like the number one thing I noticed right away. And it also has even more levels of pressure sensitivity. And in the software, they've made improvements to all the stuff it works with. So like screen off notes, and actually the wheel that pops up when you first take out the S Pen. I don't know if you could do this with the last Note, but you can spin it around and even add whatever apps you want to that carousel. So it kind of acts like another quick launch carousel, which is pretty cool in case you have a certain other assistant you like to launch. My favorite new software feature, though, in this Note is actually being able to launch 2 apps at once in split screen with a single touch. So in Apps Edge, you can create an app pair, like say YouTube and the browser, for example, and touching it launches them both side by side. That's definitely going to get me to use split screen a bit more. Even as awesome as a huge display like this is, I found myself not using split screen very much on previous Notes and Samsung phones. But I realized, if you have this good setup like this, you just set up a couple of good ones like Spotify and Google Maps, for example, a lot of music while driving. I'll definitely use that more often, so I can kind of dig into that. But that's pretty much it for new software stuff happening. If you've used an S8 or a Note 7, you've seen this style, this look before. There isn't a laundry list of new features with the software here, but that's the way Samsung goes. So easily the biggest new headlining feature, new change with the Galaxy Note 8, is the cameras around the back. So Note 8 is now rocking 2 12-megapixel cameras on the back, one with a normal wide-angle lens, and the other with a telephoto lens, a 2x optical zoom, just like iPhone 7 Plus does. But the difference with these is they're both optically stabilized. So in theory, it should work more often in low light than the iPhones, in theory. And Samsung's tossed in a couple pretty cool features to work with the combo of cameras as you'd expect. So they have a little 1x and 2x button now to switch between the lenses that everyone's doing. I get it, it's simple, it works, no complaints. But you can now see some new photo modes, including one called Live Focus, which is just like portrait mode at first on the iPhones, so it moves to the 2x telephoto lens and blurs the background, but then you can change the level of background blur live, as the name implies, and see exactly how much you want it blurred before you take the picture. So it's definitely artificially adding blur. And then once you take the picture, you can go into the gallery. But with these, it also simultaneously captures a photo with the wide-angle lens and the telephoto lens at the same time. And you can also now still adjust the level of added background blur after you've taken the photo, which is pretty awesome. So now obviously I want to keep messing with the camera to see how good this blur effect actually is. You know, if it handles edges well, if there's a difference in aperture between the telephoto and wide-angle lens. So all this stuff will be tested for the full review, but in summary, I'm pretty optimistic for this phone. Much of that is obviously because Samsung has a pretty damn good track record with a lot of this stuff. A lot of times you get a new phone coming out and you don't know if you can be optimistic or not. And this Note 8 is going to be an expensive phone, coming in at around $1,000 retail when it drops on September 15th. So you really want to be able to trust what it's going to do is everything you want. But like I said, Samsung has this track record. You know, they've had great cameras in their phones in the past. They've had a great track record with displays. They've had the best display in any smartphone for the past 2-3 years. Battery life has yet to be seen, and software updates are always a toss-up, but as a package, Note 8 to me is looking pretty damn hot. So either way, the full review will tell all, so definitely subscribe to be the first to see that when it comes out if you haven't already. But that's it. Let me know what you think of Galaxy Note 8. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Peace.